Hello my friends, how are you doing? Today I'm absolutely delighted to kick off my series for the Nik Collection Color Efex Pro 4 series. In this video we're going to talk about the basics on how to install that, make it work in Affinity Photo, and I will explain the interface of the software to you and give you a lot of secret sauce on how to get started. Let's start this video. My name is Olivio, I'm a professional designer and I want to thank all of my patrons who support me and make these videos possible. Also, my weekly live streams and my weekly challenges are back, so join my Facebook group for the weekly challenges and of course join my live stream tomorrow 8 p.m. CET so you can chat with me. I will do a lot of cool stuff and of course also review your entries from the weekly challenge. All right, let's get started here. And of course the first question to answer is, how do we install the software? Of course, you buy it on DxO on their website, download the installer and then install it as a normal plugin, just the installer, nothing special about that. Then open up Affinity Photo and you want to go to Edit up here and then to Preferences, and in the Preferences window, Photoshop plugins. So click on that and here you might already see the plugins down here or maybe not. In that case, what you want to do is, you see here on the upper section, you can select the plugin search folders. So click here on Add and locate the position on your hard drive where the plugins have been installed. I'm on Windows, so for me that is C, Program Files, DxO, Nik Collection, and then simply add that, close down Affinity Photo, open it up again, and the plugins should show up down here. Now you can see in the status bar that some of them are unknown and the other ones are working. You can still use the unknown plugins, but you have to activate that. So down here you can see there is a checkbox for allow unknown plugins to be used. So make a check marker there, close down that window, restart Affinity Photo, and now you should see your plugins. Where? In Filters, Plugins, Nik Collection, and here you have a list of all the plugins that you can use. Okay, now here is the first secret sauce I want to share with you. Here is a picture that I've already used in my last video. It's a cat in Thailand, and when we open this up in Color Efex Pro, we have a little problem. You can see that the image is shown to you upside down. Now, how do you fix that? It's actually super easy. Simply cancel and then right click on the image layer, rasterize, because this will rasterize it exactly in the position you see on the screen. And now if you open it up again in Nik Collection, you can see everything is as it should be. Here's another secret sauce for you. When you use Nik Collection as a plugin inside of Affinity Photo, it will render all of the adjustments, all of the filters into that pixel layer that you have selected. It's a destructive method. So what you want to do, this is very important, right click on that layer and select duplicate so you have a backup, and then use it with the Nik Collection plugins, because then you can always go back to the original layer. And also another bit of secret sauce, you might want to make multiple duplicates, apply different filters and effects to them, and then paint them into your original picture by using masks or by erasing elements from these pixel layers. So you can do a lot with that plugin. Now let's check out the interface of Color Efex Pro 4. First of all, very important, make this window as big as possible. It might be just small on your screen at first. So up here on the side, you have elements to adjust your window size. On Mac, it's a little bit different. So try to figure out how to make that window as big as possible on your screen so you can really see what you're doing. Now, when we look on the left side of the window, you can see up here it says Library, and then below here it says Recipes, and then even below that it says History. So these are sliding areas here that you can show by clicking on them. Let's explain what they are. The filter library is a list of all the filters that are included in Color Efex Pro 4. Remember, this is just one plugin of the overall Nik collection, and even though this is just one plugin, you get a load of filters that you can use and that are really amazing. Okay, so you have an all list which has all of the filters, and then you have subcategories that DxO has created for you. They are film, wedding, architecture, nature, portrait, and travel. There is one additional category that is favorites. And favorites are all the filters where you click on this little yellow star here. So you can see when I click on all filters, some of them are gray, some of them are yellow. So simply click on them and they are automatically being added to your favorites list. That's really a very, very useful shortcut. Now, another somewhat hidden element of this list is that right here on the right side, you have a little icon that gets blue when you mouse over it. And this is a big secret sauce because I think a lot of people miss that. When you click on this, you get a bunch of presets with a preview that you can go through and you can click on them. You can see when I do that, this filter is added here on the right side with these adjustments, but I can still click through it and it will load the other adjustments to give me a preview of what is happening in a bigger way. And if you don't want any of that, you can still, of course, remove that filter. So this is really the cool thing in Color Efex Pro. You can stack the filters and you can use them multiple times. So there is a ton of things you can do here. You can really go very deep into your picture editing and adjusting to create amazing results. But this is actually only the starting point because, of course, down here we have recipes. And recipes means that these are multi-filter presets. So recipes like in cooking, what you have created before. And of course, you always get a preview for them, which is really cool. You can see before you choose anything what the result is going to be and if you like that. So when you click on this, for example, you can see on the right side, it is loading all of the filters with all of the adjustments. And of course, all of them can still be opened, they can be readjusted, they can be rearranged. So there is a lot that you can do here. And of course, you can always also remove any of these filters if you don't want them until you have an empty list here on the right side. And again, you can go down here to history to undo any of your steps. And you can also see that this history list actually is organized with a layout. So you can see what you have done in kind of subcategories. You can see all of these steps fall under filter list changed, then another one is for preset, then filter list changed again, then some other presets that we tried out. So it is much easier to read. Now here's another thing that is really nice. And that is here on that side, you can see you can hide that panel by clicking on it, and you have the same icon over here. You can click on that and hide that side, so you get a really big view of your image. And this is of course more important if you're starting to zoom in your image. You can see that this is really starting to fill the screen and to show you everything you need to see. So that's very, very useful when you want to work on your image and see more details in here. Now up here, you can see you have some other preview elements, and this again is very useful. So let's apply here, for example, one of my favorite filters, which is Photo Stylizer. Let's click on that. You can see we get some beautiful colors here. And now I have different preview ways. One is, of course, just a single view where I see the complete image, and I can turn off all of the filters by simply clicking on compare here. So this is showing me the image without anything applied to it. And then when I let go of my mouse, I have all of the filters applied to it again. Then we have split view, which will give me a slider here that I can position anywhere I want, which is very important to have a comparison. For example, you want to compare this water drop before and after, or this water drop over here. So being able to move this is really important. And on top of that, you can even rotate that so you can go in this direction, because sometimes that is also very important to be able to do that. Of course, we still have another way to do that, and this is side-by-side preview, which is also very nice. You can have it like this, and when you zoom in, this will also then fill the complete screen, so that's very nice. But you can also rotate this here in the middle with this icon, click on that, and now you have this side by side. And up here you can see you have a navigator. You can move around in the image to see any kind of detail you want, and you have an overview to know where in the image are you located with your preview window. And what you can also see here is we have a background gray. Now, you might know that the background gray is very important for reading your image correctly. The reason for that is if you have a background that is too dark or too bright in comparison to the image, the colors and the contrasts of the image look different. This is why usually you're using a medium gray in the background, so not to be influenced by the darkness or brightness of the background. But you can click here on the background color, and you can see you can turn this to black if you want to, or white, or back to gray. So now let's have a look on the right side of our image, because this is where all of the work is happening. Let's add a second filter. Let's say here, for example, Glamour Glow. So I click here on Add Filter. That's pretty important, because if I click on Glamour Glow right away, this will simply replace that filter. So click on Add Filter here, and then say Glamour Glow. And now I have a Glamour Glow also applied to my image. Now, let's look at the different elements of our controls here. So first of all, what you can do here with this little arrow is that you can open up these adjustments. So you know what filter you're working on, and you can always go back to filters that you have applied before. And you can see that the others are closing in that moment. So you always only see the one you're working on. This makes it very nice and clear what you're doing, because you can have a lot of filters in here to adjust your image. Now, another thing you see here is this hook. And that means simply you can turn on and off this filter in a second by just clicking on that, and this gives you a preview. Sometimes this is very important, because if you're using a lot of filters and maybe you get an effect you don't like and you want to figure out the source, you can simply go through them, turn them on and off one by one, and figure out where that is coming from. So that's also a nice little piece of secret sauce. Another thing here is this little hamburger menu, as it's called. When you click on that, you see you can copy the control points over. I will tell you in a second what control points are. Then you can reset the filter but keep the control points. CP stands for control points, or reset the filter and delete all of the control points. And of course, there's an X next to that. When you click on that, this filter is going to be removed. Inside of here, you have your adjustments. I'm not going to go deeper into them in this video, so we are only going to talk about the elements that all of these filters have. Every filter in Color Efex Pro 4 has a shadow and highlight slider. The reason for that is that the filter might impact the shadows and highlights in a way that doesn't look good, that you don't like. So these sliders will help you to recover the shadows or recover the highlights in your image. Now, below that, we have the control points. We have already talked about a little bit up here by copy control points, keep them or delete them when you reset the filter. Now, what are control points? When you click here on this little triangle, this will open up. You have a general opacity slider. This is how much your filter is affecting the image. So you can make all of your adjustments and then basically reduce the opacity of that filter in general. So you can see when I do this, I am getting back my original picture, and I can make up here all my adjustments I want, and then with the opacity apply just a little bit, just a taste, so as much as I want that to be on the picture. And then the control points on top of that can do the same thing in a regional way, and also depending on the luminosity of where you put that control point. And that is absolutely mind-blowing that you can do that, because this will give you some very intricate manipulation abilities for each of these filters. That is like bang, your mind is just flying away when you realize how strong that feature is. You can see I have plus control points, minus control points, and the only difference between these two is that one is preset for you to 0% and the other one to 100%. So let's click here to activate that control point tool, and now you can see my mouse has changed to that little dot with some little lines around it, and I can click into that area here, and I have two sliders here. So the upper slider is the area where that filter is applied, and the lower one is the opacity on how strong that filter is applied. But here is the amazing thing that's going to blow your mind. Each of these control points is luminosity sensitive. So it is based on the brightness of where you put that point. That is, if your mind starts to understand how powerful that is when you're working with control points, and each of these control points can be set to a specific brightness value in your image, this is where you start to understand that you can really go extremely deep into adjusting images with these Nik Collection filters. So I'm going to show you how that looks like. So you can see here under control points, right side, we have an icon here that shows or hides the mask for all of my control points. But below that, I have a little box where I can set a check mark. So when I click on that, you can see now that I have here my mask preview. And with that, when I move this around, you can see that this is very quickly adapting my mask. And as with any mask, the areas that are dark is where the filter is not applied. The areas that are bright is where the filter is applied. So I can say, I want to have this only here in the belly area, and then I make my area of effect a little bit smaller so it really stays in that area. And you can see that from the circle that we have around that this is shining outside of that circle too. So the circle is not the limit of the mask. You have to make the mask sometimes a little bit smaller. You can see now it's just applied in the belly area. I can click to hide that again. And then in here, you have a percentage that gives you an indicator on how big the area is. So you can see here, when I push this up, I can go to 100% of the circle, and I can push this down so it's very small to even 0% of the circle. Then over here, you have a general switch to switch on and off all of the control points at the same time. And again, below that, you have these individual hooks where you can then turn them individually on and off. Now, on top of that, you can create, of course, multiple of these control points. So let's click here, create another one, let's say up here in that area, make it a little bit smaller. So you can see now I have another control point here, and I can select both of them by clicking on one, holding Shift and clicking on the other. And now I can also group them together. Now, what grouping them together allows me to do is that I can adjust the setting for both of them at the same time. You can see I can push this down. Now it's not applied to anything. I can push this up, and now it's applied here and here in the same way. And you can also, of course, ungroup them if you want to, so you have them individual again. You can also duplicate your control points. This is very nice. Let's ungroup them again. Here, let's go for the first control point here and say, I want to have a duplicate for that. You see, now I have the duplicate with the same settings, and I can simply move that to another part of the image to be applied there. So that is very nice if you want to have different control points in different areas. Sometimes you need that because in Nik Collection Color Efex Pro, you cannot paint on a mask. So if this spreads out over an area that is not just one area, but maybe a string, like let's say a cloud that is going over the sky, you have to use different control points and simply spread out smaller control points over this kind of area. So you get one big mask from that. And of course, you have a delete icon down here, but be careful because when you click that, it's going to delete all of the selected control points. And another thing that I really want to suggest you do is to save the recipe over here. This means all of the adjustments, all of the control points, everything you have done so far will be saved as a recipe in this list over here where you find all of your recipes. And you can give this a name for the picture you have been working on, and also give it a name, maybe your own name, so you figure out, okay, this is a custom recipe that you have created and not DxO, so it's easier to find. And this kind of makes it possible to be non-destructive. When you go back to the image and you still have the original image, you can simply load that recipe again and then do some more work on that. But we are not done yet, because we also have a loop and a histogram, and they again have some secret sauce in them, some genius UI design. So down here you find the loop and the histogram. You can click on that. You can even lock the position of the loop if you want to, so it stays there. Pretty nifty. So that's the first secret sauce. The second one is when you are in the loop mode, you can turn on show clipped shadows. Then on the right side, you also have show clipping highlights. And by the way, another thing is, this is not just shown in the loop, this is shown over all of your image. Let's zoom in here, and you can see over here we have these green areas. These are clipping highlights on that plastic foil. So you can see when I turn this on and off, this is the indicator for that. And then when we move over here, you can see here we have some red in these areas, which means we have a little bit of clipping shadows here on the fur. So that is very nifty, very useful. And of course, apart from that, we also have a histogram here that we can then also use when we apply our adjustments. And you can also see that this is updating. So when I change the contrast here, my histogram down here is moving also. So this is a live histogram. It is not the histogram of the source image, but of the image after all of the filters are applied. So that's super useful on top of that. And of course, after you've done, the simple thing is you click down here on OK, and everything will be rendered into the image. Again, this is destructive. We cannot go back into Nik Collection and readjust these adjustments in Affinity Photo as a plugin. This is going to be rendered into the pixel layer. This is why we have our backup. If you have other questions for the general use of Nik Collection's Color Efex Pro 4, let me know in the comments. And of course, we're gonna go in the next videos through all of these magnificent filters here, show you what they do, give you a ton of secret sauce. This is gonna be absolutely mind-blowing. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon. And if you like this, subscribe to my channel, hit the bell button, leave a like. All of that helps me so much with my channel. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.